he's looking at the ground and he's looking at the goal, and he says, just about here. And I went, what happened just about here? He says, the Coronation Cup final.
As far as I can remember, it was a throw in. The ball was flung in and it just bounced and he just hit it.
He took me aside and put me on a spot that was maybe 45 yards from goal.
And Tommy Younger maintained to this day that he got a fingertip, and he says Younger never saw it.
And he says the big man was crying, he says, crying.
You know, it's a Celtic goal that Superman would score, or Popeye, you know, but he says, it was around about here, he says, Big Younger never saw it, he says.
It was a totally Irish family, if you look back at the history. They would come here at the famine time, the whole lot of them, and settled in Lennoxton. A very strong Catholic family. I mean, my granddad was shocking. My wife is a local leishman, and he actually told me to get rid of her because they would burn down every chapel in the country. That's what his father was like. A very, very hard man, a very strict man. Never ever gave praise to any of them. We had 4 sons played. 3 played senior, 1 played juniors, cap junior. A great player as well. Never ever got praise for Johnny.
Well, Neilly was also the 4 of us, 4 boys. He had started playing football before us, and he was a juvenile football, and played with Dunny Pace Thistle, where he signed for Morton there. Then his time was doing up in the forces after that. He was in the RAF, went to the RAF, and came out. So those years was lost between us.
Neilly Mochan began his football career signing for Morton in June 1944. 2 years later, Mochan was conscripted into the RAF, spending most of his time serving his country in India. He returned to Morton as a senior for the 48-49 season.
I remember Neilly Mochan scoring a goal at Celtic Park for Morton. And somebody had mentioned to me that in all probability Celtic were interested in him. And eventually he came along. And what he had was a great sense of direction, pacey, difficult to dispossess when he was on the ball.
I believe it was Morton he picked up the nickname Smiler because he was just a smiley, happy person at the time. And he went south and he's come back up, and when he's come back up here, it's stuck. He's still been Smiler.
Neilly had attracted the attention of Manchester City, Preston and Blackpool. In an interview with the local press, Neilly mentioned his preference to stay in Scotland, but no club came calling. And eventually in 1951, a then massive £14,000 bid from Middlesbrough saw Neilly moving down south for 2 seasons.
And one of the young guys that was coming through at that time was Brian Clough. Now, in the second season, Neilly lost his place in the Middlesbrough side, and he spent quite a bit of time in the reserves, and Cloughie was the boy that used to clean his boots for him. So the Middlesbrough side that he joined were quite strong. Didn't really work out for Neilly, but he still scored a ratio of a goal every 2 games in the top league in England. I think his heart was always set on a move to Celtic, and when the opportunity arose, he took the chance to come back up to Scotland. And that's where the Celtic stories really began for Neilly. That was his lifetime's ambition, to sign for Celtic with his Irish roots. A Roman Catholic boy growing up, Celtic were his team. So his entire family were delighted with that.
Well, Neilly was a big signing at the time. He'd been a very good player with Morton, and he'd had great experience down in Middlesbrough as well before he came back. So I think that the fans were excited at that time, because Celtic weren't really a team who bought a lot of players, they reared their own.
He fell out of Middlesbrough, and he came back up here, and he was staying in Madison. And Celtic players at that time were rebelling against the chairman, Kelly, Sir Bob. They were all rebelling against him. They wouldn't play. They had a cup final coming up. And Neilly was sitting in Madison doing nothing, no playing. So he says, somebody had a great idea. He says, and they came and they got me. He said, and I never looked back.
The day after Neilly Mochan signed for Celtic, he was put straight in the first team for the Glasgow Charity Cup final versus Queen's Park at Hampden. Celtic ran out 3-1 winners, with Mochan scoring Celtic's second and third goal.
He'd come to Celtic within about a fortnight. He'd won 2 medals, Charity Cup and a Coronation. Hadn't played a game at Celtic Park. Had scored a crucial goal in the Coronation Cup final. And this is where one of the notable things about Neilly. He scored goals at important times.
First memory was like, I think every supporter maybe my age was when he came. His first 3 games were at Hampden, won 3 cups or so. But the Coronation Cup, I was at the final, and the ticket, and it was 7 shillings and 6pence for the centre stand, and I was about from here to the fence there, off the presentation. And I remember Neilly scoring a goal, 20 odd yards, but as I said, when you came here to play with Celtic, Neilly had it away about 50 yards by the time, you know, he always added yards, you know. And you said, even with the old brown ball, Neilly, he says, I could hit it with anything.
He took me aside and put me on a spot that was maybe 45 yards from goal. And he says, there's a big steel needle down there. I says, what is it for? He says, that's where I hit the ball, he says, in the Coronation Cup final. Past Tommy Younger, I think it was with Hibs. And he says, the big man was crying, he says, crying.
And he would always tell you how wonderful the goal he scored in the Coronation Cup final. I think whatever the goal was, it was maybe 20 yards. But as each year went back, there was a yard. I think it was about 50 yards by the time. We were there a few years.
I remember playing in the semi-final of the Cup against Dundee at Hampden. And we're out in the park just having, you know, the players go out and wander about on the pitch to have a look at it. And Neilly, he says to me, Pat, he says, come over here. And I went over and he was standing there and he was looking at the ground and he was looking at the goal. And he says, just about here. And I went, what happened just about here? He says, the Coronation Cup final. He says, Tommy Younger. And Tommy Younger maintained to this day that he got a finger to it. And he says, Younger never saw it. And I thought, for here, you know, I'm going this distance. And, you know, it's a sort of goal that Superman would score or Popeye or, you know, but he says, it was around about here. He says, Big Younger never saw it. He says, great, you know.
As far as I can remember, it was a throw in. The ball was flung in and it just bounced and he just hit it. And you maybe heard the story about the boys asking him on the ground when he done it with McNeil's magnetic board. And he got the black marker and he said, well, they put the throw in there, in the halfway lane. He said, ball got flung in. He said, no, hit it. And he did that with the marker into the back of the net and it wouldn't rub off. So somebody else got the blame of that, I'm sure.
Neilly Mochan came into the team, made it obviously an instant impact. It gave the fans something to really, you know, hold on to after so many poor years. And also that was the tournament where Jock Stein first became captain because Sean was injured. And he said he realised later how important that had been to the relationship between Jock Stein and Bob Kelly, you know, that Jock became this, you know, captain, this hero of this fantastic team, would tour around the supporters' clubs with the trophy, the Coronation Cup. And, you know, this relationship with Bob Kelly, who'd be with him, developed through that. And it just increased his status, you know, created this bond between Jock Stein and Bob Kelly. And from then, you know, Jock Stein never looked back. I mean, he'd come in as this kind of reserve centre-half, and the Coronation Cup, Sean always felt, and being captain for it, because Sean had made Jock Stein his vice-captain, was the making of him. He said the Coronation Cup was hugely important for the development of that team and the development of Jock Stein especially. But I know that Jock Stein and Sean always referred to the Coronation Cup as Neilly's Cup or Mochan's Cup, because they said, you know, that it was really his tournament and how fantastic he'd been and the wonder goals and the performances he put in.
Big Jock used to call it the Mochan Cup. That's what he used to always say, where's that Mochan Cup? Whenever there was photo shoots, they get the Mochan Cup out. So that's Big Jock used to call it the Mochan Cup. And I spoke earlier there about when they were in the boot room. When I was a kid, I used to wait with my dad. Obviously, I was only a young boy, but I used to go into I used to go into the boardroom, and there was a huge cabinet with all the trophies that were won. Coronation Cup was one of them. League Cups, everything was there. But I used to use them as goalposts and get a ball, and I used to kick the ball about the boardroom and use said cups as goalposts.
And the Coronation Cup final, I wasn't actually at that game, but I could see the effect it had on the Celtic support, because there was one pub in Coatbridge which sent 60 buses from the one pub to support Celtic in that game. So you could tell the effect it had on the Celtic family, and of course they went on to win that cup. They'd won the St Mungo's Cup as well. But no consistency. And you'll know yourself that after that there was a huge gap, a vacuum almost, that Celtic couldn't fill properly.
Smiler Mochan joined a Celtic team with two other future legends in their ranks, club captain Sean Fallon and vice-captain Jock Stein. The three men soon developed a close bond revolving around their ideas on football and fitness.
There was a little group of players, I think, that came along around that time who were interested in the game a little bit more than just turning up on a Saturday and seeing who we were playing, because in those days the level of preparation clearly wasn't anywhere near how it became under Jock Stein, Sean Fallon, Neilly Mochan in the 60s and 70s. And they really wanted to look a little bit more, and they would look at future opponents and ways of playing and look at what teams were doing abroad. And at the heart of that group was very much Jock Stein, Sean, Neilly Mochan, Bobby Evans, Willie Fernie, one or two others. And these guys were quite serious about the game beyond that. So there was a definite friendship there right from the start. And I know Sean felt very much that Neilly brought something to the dressing room in terms of his personality, and brought something to the team as well. He said he felt he really brought some penetration and he said he had a fantastic shot on him, and I think a lot of Celtic's play in those days, you had a lot of the ball, they had some really good footballers, but they didn't always make the most of that. They had Tully providing great service, they had Willie Fernie, who was a great technician, Bobby Collins obviously proved what a tremendous player he was, but he said that sometimes you would just need someone to just take a shot, and he said that Neilly was well capable of doing that, and to great effect. Sean would always say that he would tease him for being one-footed, but then I suppose if you look at his wonder goal in the Coronation Cup, that was his weaker foot, so he can't have been that one-footed.
They were not drinkers as such. We heard Walter Smith saying about the Rangers team, well, we drank together and played together and were successful and so on. Celtic weren't that in that period. Oh, I think there were one or two took a dram, there's no doubt about that, but Stein had a sobriety about him. A serious man, but alternately very, very witty, extremely witty, could come up with one-line crackers. And given that, the merriment about them at that period, when they weren't getting the success they really should have got. So I think friendship was extremely important. And we saw it in later years when I saw Neilly Mochan working with the great Lisbon Lions team.
Neilly played with a great Celtic team. At the time, that was the time Jock came on board as a centre half, and the players, you could Bonner, Hockney, Fallon, Evans, Stein and Peacock, Higgins, Neilly was outside left, Charlie Tully. They're all great players, and Neilly was brought up in that kind of way.
The team very rarely could play two games back to back with the same lineup. There was a lot of tinkering. Players were put in and taken out. Even the best senior professionals missed big games, and Neilly unfortunately missed big games because Robert Kelly would drop him from games. So that would be the main reason that that particular side that Mochan, Fallon and Stein were part of didn't win more trophies. It's very disappointing when you look through the history books that that team had great individuals.
I think there was always a feeling, a kind of bafflement of why he didn't play more. That he'd shown what he could do, and in the years following that he wasn't always a first pick in the team, and certainly not in his favourite position. And there was no one could understand why that was. So, and I think Sean, while not wanting to criticise Bob Kelly, certainly felt that at times as well.
We had our cameras sitting in front of the director's box in the old-fashioned Celtic Park. And the abuse that Bob Kelly, later Sir Robert Kelly, got was unbelievable. I mean, he really got it in the neck because they weren't beating Rangers. That was the be-all and the end-all of everything. Still is.
In 1954, Celtic won their first League and Scottish Cup double in 40 years.
Celtic, winners of the League Championship, were finalists with Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup. Over 130,000 supporters went to Hampden Park to encourage their favourites. Celtic, wearing the hoop shirts, kicked off, and Aberdeen had a rough time during the first 20 minutes. Nevertheless, they survived the onslaught of the Celtic forwards. Half-time and still no score, but 5 minutes afterwards, Mochan kicked a beauty right across the Aberdeen goal area. The ball bounced off Young's foot and into the Don's net. A tragedy for Aberdeen, but one up for Celtic. The Aberdeen supporters were as disappointed as Young himself, but they soon had something to cheer them up when the ball went to Buckley and he levelled the score. Both teams were now going all out for the winning goal, and this finally went to Celtic when Fernie tapped the ball to Fallon, who completed the move by scoring goal number 2.
Mochan played a pivotal part alongside Stein and Fallon, finishing the season as Celtic's top goal scorer and cementing a place in the Scottish national team for the World Cup in Switzerland.
Yeah, well, it was a reward for them winning the double in 53-54. Celtic took the players to Switzerland for a World Cup. And Neilly was playing for Scotland the World Cup, and the Celtic players involved used to visit the Celtic Hotel. The Celtic players were playing for Scotland at the time, used to visit the Celtic Hotel, and this is where Stein got to learn of all the mistakes that had been made. He actually saw the games in Switzerland that Scotland played, particularly that humiliating defeat by Uruguay, and he got to learn all the mistakes that we made in preparation, where there were some really laughable preparation. But, you know, players were training for the games in their own club jerseys. You know, and somebody said that they looked like licorice all sorts. And that, you know, when you get that knowledge, that this is knowledge that you're gathering together. Stein's gathering that knowledge, Neilly Mochan's gathering that knowledge about the preparation. It's all about, it's an educational process, you know.
It wasn't something that he spoke about. It wasn't a very good tournament. That was the carry on with the strips. Tommy Doherty played in. The strips were woolen strips, apparently, in Uruguay.
Instead of taking a pool of players, they took 12 players. Wives and girlfriends, the official Blazers were allowed to go instead of having a bigger pool of players. So 12 players turned up. They had woolen jerseys to play in blistering heat, and they were defeated in their 2 games. The second one being a devastating blow. They got absolutely hammered 7-0 from Uruguay.
Jock Stein used the trip as a footballing education. The team that impressed him the most were tournament favourites Hungary. Stein was especially impressed by the Hungarians' professionalism, fitness and finesse. Stein decided he would try to implement similar methods when embarking on his coaching career.
The Hungarian side was certainly a huge influence on Jock Stein and Sean, I'm sure Neilly as well, that they saw that. The game of the century, the one at Wembley as well, where Hungary absolutely destroyed England. That was a moment where they thought, this is the way football's going. It's not as rigid as it's been, and you need players who can do different things, and you cannot, the old ways just aren't going to work, and the old assumption that British football and British style, the physical style, was the way to go. It just didn't hold water anymore. So there was the Hungary team was a huge influence. I think the Brazil team that was coming through as well also influenced them, the style and the formation they played. But Hungary was the start where they thought, we're going to have to look at doing something different here. The ball control, the movement off the ball, and this was what we should be doing in this country, and we should be bringing it through. And I know that Jock Stein always kept a video of the game against England at Wembley when Hungary were just awesome. And he would still, I think, refer to that, you know, years, decades later.
I think one thing always important to beating Rangers. That was a big factor with Neilly. And he obviously played in that 7-1 game as well. One of the most famous sort of all-firm games ever from a Celtic point of view.
Celtic kick off in the League Cup final at Hampden. What a day for the Parkhead fans as the cup holders call the tune with an opener from Sammy Wilson. A minute before the interval, they made it 2-0 when Mochan slammed in a beauty. Half-time and Celtic still playing with magnificent supremacy. 8 minutes and MacPhail heads home number 3. Followed by another from MacPhail.
30 minutes of the second half, and another one from Mochan. Talk about rubbing it in. Here's McPhail's hat-trick. Number 7 came from a penalty as Fernie put it neatly in the net. What a victory, out of this world. But it's no dream for skipper Roger Peacock. That cup's real, and it's been truly won.
The second goal when Neilly scored at that end there, and he cut in from the byline, and the full-back came to close him down. The goalkeeper's almost at the near post, and Neilly still put the ball in the net. And he just hit this ball, and I think it was the speed. You know, he had a, was it Thunderball? They used to call him the Cannonball as well. For by Smiler, it was Cannonball in the early days, it was called. But he could hit a ball. Oh, some of the goals they scored were unbelievable.
Oh, it's part of legend, isn't it? You know, I mean, to beat your greatest rivals by that margin, it's still, I think, the biggest margin of victory in any British Cup final, major final enemy. I mean, it's a great, I mean, beating Rangers at any time was always an achievement for Celtic in those days, but to absolutely thrash them 7-1, astonishing. Because that Celtic team was an unpredictable team. They had so many gifted players. You had Tully, you had Collins, you had Fernie, you had Neilly, but so often there was so often they weren't a real team. They played as individuals. So for him to click on that particular day like that, that's magnificent.
I mean, Sean felt that the 7-1 game was, for him, better than Lisbon. He said, you know, it was one of these games, he said he could appreciate that Lisbon was more significant for Celtic as a club in its development and its status, but he said there's nothing that beats being involved as a player in something like that, and he said it was because it was so unexpected, and he said it was like one of these perfect games where everyone plays well. You know, it's just everything works, everything comes off for you, and he said it was just perfect, and he just loved it. And he still, the only trophy he had up in his house, the only medal and the only picture of kind of Celtic days was the greatest ever Celtic, you know, Old Firm game trophy in his mantelpiece for the 7-1 game.
But my greatest memory of Neilly as a player was in 1960. They played St Mirren 3 cup ties. First game was at Love Street, 1 each draw. Second game was at Celtic Park, it was a 4 each draw after extra time. And the third game, Celtic won 5-2, and Neilly scored all 5 goals. Remember what a tremendous personal triumph that was. And the average crowd for those 3 games, 42,000. Think about it, 42,000 on average, 3 cup ties. Fantastic.
I remember we were all sitting there, and this guy came out, and I think it was like I think it was off season, and there wasn't many players around. But there was this old guy who'd come across from Canada, and he must have been in his 70s or whatever at the time. And he was asking us to sign like a ball for him. So we were all signing balls for him, and like we were reserve players or whatever. So, you know, you'd be lucky if you'd heard any of us. And then I remember Paul McStay walking him, and he was the club captain at the time. And Paul McStay, and he took the ball at Paul McStay. Oh, do you know? And Paul McStay was just about to sign the ball, and Neilly walked through the door for the boot room, and the guy grabbed the ball off Neilly. He says, "Neilly, go and sign this." And Paul McStay hadn't even signed it. The guy's like, "Neilly Mochan." And he then said to Neilly, I was there the game you scored 4 goals. Raith Rovers. And Neilly's like, "No, I never scored 4 goals against Raith Rovers." The boy went, you did. You scored 1 doing this and 1 doing that." And Neilly was like, "No, it wasn't me, son." He says, I was there. He says, "You're bound to mind the game." Neilly says, "No, I can't mind that game. I can mind the game I scored 5. He said, the boy was like, that's what I meant. And Neilly, before the boy got a chance to answer, was off ski. And that's what Neilly was like.
And there's a famous picture of Neilly with the 5 fingers up, and it was caught by a pressman. And Neilly Mochan was very, very proud of that achievement. And in generations after the event, if someone scored 2 or maybe a hat-trick, sometimes even 4, Neilly would be in the dugout with his 5 fingers up just to remind them who held the records. But that again was quite a late appearance for Neilly, 1960, but he was still able to pull it out the bag and score 5 goals.
I scored 4 goals, and of course I'm getting took off, and I'm thinking, I said to Gav, "Why take me off her?" And he's going, and he just looked at Neilly, and Neilly's on the bench laughing.
You know, and he comes walking in, and you know, you've got to laugh. You know, any normal person would be raging. I knew exactly what he meant because Neilly scored the 5. You know, and you know, you never beat me, son. I'm like, not as long as he's still the gaffer. You know, so I was saying he'll not be here long. I was getting all right, Neilly. He'll not be here long, and then I'll take your record, all that kind of stuff. But twice, I get took off twice. So it was twice I scored 4 goals and get took off. You know.
Jock Stein announced his retirement from football in January 1957 through injury. He was given a coaching position with the club, working with the reserves. Sean Fallon retired as a player in August 1958 and joined Stein coaching in the reserves, as well as becoming assistant manager to the first team under Jimmy McGrory. In March 1960, Stein moved on to Dunfermline to further his managerial career.
Neilly used to come in from Larbert, I think it was, every day on his way to Celtic Park, and he got to know my father. My father used to make him his tea and that. And while we were having our tea, we'd talk about football and the dogs, which Neilly very fond of the dogs. And I remember one time my father came back and told me something, and as I said, I was absolutely shattered because I used to take Celtic defeats very, very badly in those days. I mean, it really upset me when Celtic get beat. But I was going through a very bad time. This is late 1964. Early 1965, when you couldn't see them winning anything. They hadn't won a trophy for about 7 or 8 years. You just couldn't see them doing anything. The club was going nowhere. I mean, you could sense that yourself, but I remember when my father told me, he said, you know what Neilly said to me today? He said, Neilly said to me, Celtic are finished. And it must have been the manner in which he said it impressed my father so much. It must have made such an impression on him. And I was really shattered when I heard that, because I mean, you really, I thought it was like the end of the world. You know?
I mean, his view was always, and Sean agreed with it, that it was the best thing that ever happened to him, being forced to retire when he did, because there was also a feeling at Celtic that he had something to offer, quite rightly, and they created this position for him, and as you know, working with the reserves, working with the youths, and that from then on he realised that this was he had a passion for this and that he was good at it, and the players responded to him, and I think all the other developments that come from that, you know, Sean becoming involved after he finished, because Sean said he'd no idea that his intention was to go back to Ireland really before that, and I think it became clear that what Jock Stein was doing was having an effect with the young players, and they thought, well, this is the way to go. And obviously the original way that went was down the Kelly kids route of we only work with young players basically, and that's what we try and do, and that didn't work, and it was only when they got the balance right and they actually combined it with bringing in the Bertiols and the guys who were real savvy, who had the experience, that it really worked.
The two of them going away, and they always kept that link, and Big Jock used to come in when he was at Dunfermline. He would come into the house to see my granda, and sit and have a cup of tea and a piece of jam. So that Neilly wouldn't be there, but he would do that. He would come in, and that was the kind of relationship they had. My granny would give him a cup of tea and a slice of bread and jam. So there was that friendship that continued even though they weren't at Celtic Park.
In November 1960, Celtic accepted a £1,500 bid from Dundee United for Neilly Mochan. He played at Tannadice Park for 3 seasons before transferring to Raith Rovers in 1964, where he played his last season as a professional footballer. After hanging up his boots, he returned to Celtic as a trainer for the first team alongside Sean Fallon.
He didn't want to be a manager. Falkner wanted him to be a manager at one time, but he preferred to be the second in command. He didn't want to be a Jock Stein. He wanted to be, what he did was what he wanted to do. He had offers to be manager, but he didn't like it.
His story to me was that it was planned, and his thing would be the 3-trip draw, whatever that is, that 1-2 and back, you know, him to Dundee United, Raith Rovers, back to Celtic Park, Big Jock, Dunfermline, Hibs, and back to Celtic Park. So as far as he was concerned, it was more or less planned to happen. And well, it worked out very well.
Neilly Mochan identified that Jock Stein was the best man for the manager's job. So for Celtic to allow Stein to leave for another club in Scotland would have absolutely baffled Neilly. Perhaps not surprised him, but it would have baffled him. And of course, Jock Stein went away, and Dunfermline bore the fruits of his labour with cups, European appearances, and the greatest period in that club's history.
In those days, when they brought Neilly back, I think it was it was over a year before Jock Stein came back. I think it was early in '64, and Sean had argued for him, I think, on the understanding that he would be part of his management team, you know, that he would be a key man when he took the reins from Jimmy McGrory, because that was just the assumption. Sean said he'd never been promised it, but it was always the assumption, and he was trying to put things together, bring in players, bring in backroom staff as well. Willie Fernie came in, you know, round about the same time. I think a lot of what Jock Stein wanted to do and what Sean and Neilly wanted to do was to recreate the spirit they'd had in 1953-54 when they won the double. Because he said, I think the difference that season, we were so together as a squad, and they really felt that that was the key in terms of getting the same for the Celtic of the decade or 2 decades later. He said that, and that started from the boot room, you know, because they were so together, they were so tight, and they were so close, and so whenever there were any decisions to be made or discussions, they could keep it all in-house, and they were very respectful and very close to each other, and there was that great relationship between them all, and the recognition of the other's talents. You know, I don't think there was ever any kind of backbiting about one of them not playing their part. There was always a recognition that they were all playing a hugely important role.
Him, Sean, Benny Rooney, even Steely, there was a group of people who were really good friends, and I think that was a major part of their success.
If you've got people about you who you can trust their opinion, and you know them, and you know they're not going to stab you in the back, or you know they're trustworthy, and you trust their opinion in players, and you've been away for a few years, so they can fill you in on what's been happening. No, it was invaluable that Willie Fernie and Neilly were still there, without a doubt.
They were great. They were great. They came from the team just before I had been on at Celtic, you know, and I thought it was great that they should be there, and Jock had them, and he was very friendly with Neilly. He had to, but Neilly was such a good, nice fella.
You had Bob Rooney, who was just a tremendous as well, really nice person. I mean, and you know, it really was first class. And Sean was just Sean. Sean was dynamite. Shouldn't have mentioned Sean. I get a wee bit sentimental when I think about him. But tremendous.
Stein was changing things. He was the first track suit manager in the business. You would come and meet him, and he was, after a game, after a training session, his black tracksuit was spattered with mud. I asked him, what is the main asset you need in a team? And he said, fitness. Absolutely. If you're not fit, you can't play. So yes, he had them steamed up. And Neilly was part of that.
The thing he thought would be the best thing for the club at the time was to get the fitness up. I more than once spoke about, we might not be the best team, but we're going to be the fittest team. And I think over the years speaking to all the ex-players and that, they definitely says the training changed. Even when Big Jock came in, the ball work that was there and the training was fantastic, and we become a very fit team. So I think he went in there with the idea of getting them as fit as possible.
Like say Brian McLaughlin, boys lad, tell me when they went to Celtic Park, he was still in his 40s, he was maybe mid-40s, my father. But Brian said he was still fitter than most of the players, eh? He was a real fitness fanatic. He used to, when he was in the house, he used to have these, you had like a rubber wire thing, a belt through the middle of it. That's what he used to do, skitting me. And if you ever use these things, if it hit you, it stung like anything, eh? And he used to, really fast, like.
Often mistaken for a player, even when he was in his 40s, often mistaken, especially foreign trips and that, it would be, well, he must be one of the players, but he was just a trainer. But he led for the front, I believe, always any of the sea run, any of the beach runs, any of the cross countries, he would lead for the front.
He was a very fit man when he was younger, a lot younger, and he kept that standard going all the time. And he was, he could do his running, and Neilly must have been about 10, 12, 14, 15 years older than us at that time, and he was able to still keep up with us at the time, at running. At the end of the day, we were probably better, more fit than the other teams. Yeah.
And he trained the players to such a superb extent. You speak to any of the guys in that team and they said there were no heart monitors, there were no sports scientists, he said, but we were as fit as you could possibly be. And then the evidence of that comes in games like Lisbon and things, in sweltering heat against teams at the very top level, when they just outlasted them and they were fitter than any of the teams they came up against.
Well, he had good relationships with every individual player. They all talked about Neilly in affectionate terms. He knew his background in terms of fitness and injuries. But more importantly, and I think sometimes people have to understand that football is a rough and tumble game. Stein could be extremely ruthless. How else could he have had the success? He could be very ruthless. But beside him, you have to have touches of humanity. And that's what Neilly had. You could always talk to Neilly. And Neilly would sometimes warn you, the big man's in a bad mood, stay out the way. He was an interpreter of Jock Stein's moods at times. So you had that balance between them. The players had the greatest respect for Jock, but they also feared him. They knew what would happen to them if they stepped out of line. So they could go to Neilly and talk to Neilly.
The boss said to me one day, just 5 weeks after I'd signed, he says, right, going to play on Saturday against St Mirren and see how you got on, see if you're ready for... I think he said to John Fallon, look, you've given Evan a game to get... John was in the team at the time. So I played at St Mirren and at Clyde, and we won 2-0 each game. And the Old Firm game was at Parkhead the next game. So I was in the first team pool. And thinking, I've just had my 2 games out, and I stood outside and I'm talking to my 2 brothers and giving them tickets. And Neilly came out, get in there, your backside in there. How, you're playing? If he knows you're out here, you don't know he's read the team out and you weren't there, going to be trouble sitting in. And that was how I learned I was playing against Rangers. And we drew 0 each that day. So it was quite a good start to my career in front of the Celtic fans.
He was there. I mean, Neilly was, 30, nearly 40 years, I think, at Parkhead. And he was just part of the institution that was there. But I think he was an important fact that, I think if Neilly said something to Mr. Stein would have listened to it. And I don't think there was many people at the park who had that kind of relationship with the boss at that time, I think. He was a funny guy, but when you're taking things serious, you listen to him.
Well, when I left here to go to Celtic, you went through there and there was Neilly, there was Bob Rooney, there was a woman who made the tea, there was Jock, Sean Fallon was there, wandering around, and you walked into an environment, you knew it was Celtic Park because everybody you spoke to was a Celtic supporter, even the guy that cut the grass. But that environment, and that was vital. And Neilly played a big part in that. Neilly was quite a jovial sort of type of person, but you just knew talking to him, he liked to win. And he wanted you to win. And he didn't like people knocking you around, and he always used to say, if they knock you around, it's your own fault. So he says, you're a big boy, you get on with it. But he was vital as well. He just kept things sort of on the cheery side, where the more serious stuff came from Big Jock and people like that.
It's a great feeling. You come to Hampden, Neil would tell you all the stories. So at Cup final, Neilly would sort of relax you as well. And he'd tell you wee stories. Never mind this, we done this and we done that. So you just go out there and do it.
Because if you've got somebody that's part and parcel of Celtic Football Club, a heritage and a tradition, plus being such a good player and being there for you to have an ear to go and listen to them, I want you to listen to me, I think that's invaluable in football. The guys are great to have about. They know that you can trust them, you can talk to them without it going any further.
Neilly was just important every day. Everywhere you went, Neilly was there, there was always a smile on his face. You never got him any different. He was just a great guy about the place. If anybody had a problem, they'd go to Neilly before they go to the boss. Everybody just went and spoke to Neilly. He'd come into Jimmy and I's room every day and he would look at the two of us and we'd sniff and go and open the curtains and lift the windows and walk out again, you know.
The stories what I've heard for, you know, is that I think he was a go-between with the players and Big Jock, you know, he would be able to tell the players, listen, the big man's in a bad mood, keep out his road or things like that, you know, and I think he was an important role for Big Jock as well. He was the go-between with him and the players, you know.
And I think if I was in his room more than anybody else when we were going away to Sea Mill. I was in a room. He thought I was a wee bit quieter than the rest, you know. I had to help him with what rooms, you know, they were all together. And it's tremendous. You tell anybody how to do that with the team that was there. And they've all had a wee jag at some of them, you know. And it's all fun. It's all fun. And you always think of coming up from Sea Mill, the bus coming up, and they're all singing. Everybody's singing. It's a great feeling.
Neilly took part in the training. Neilly, you know, was out in the training pitch with the boys, and he would be doing things that Jock would tell him to do with the players, you know. And the very fact that Neilly was such a popular figure and he was such a great player that he earned instant respect he gets because of that and because he was a really nice man, you know.
And then he'd done another wee thing. He'd put the ball, you know, on the 18-yard line like that. The ball would be there. There's the goals, no goalkeeper. And he would say, you have to hit it for there, straight into the net. But it's not, it's to be a height. You can't roll it. But put it straight in. And he'd done it every time. He just walked up and went whack. And it hit the back. Right, who's next? And then he would fly up there and it'd bounce. And he'd get them. Lisbon Lions, what a road. Just, it was great.
I remember one of the afternoons I was back doing a bit extra goalkeeping because I like to do a wee bit extra because we learned in England to do certain things. And he would say, Neilly come back, he started shooting in. I never asked him again. Never seen anybody could hit a ball at him in my life. Even at that age, you used to hit it from 30 yards and all, I used to scream.
But what Neilly installed when you Sean and apart from their different Big Jock was obviously the genius as far as football goes. They always installed you the importance of playing with Celtic, what it meant to play with Celtic. That was a big factor, more so even for Sean than Neilly, but they installed in you the importance of what it meant to play for Celtic in front of those fans and not to let them down and not to let yourself down. And you had to work extremely hard in training and during the games, and Neilly played a part in that.
Anyway, they developed the young boys, and eventually Big Jock came back as a manager in '65, and they were all just starting to play regularly in the team and have a lot of games together, and then it happened.
Celtic's first trophy in 7 years was claimed when Stein beat his former team Dunfermline in the 1965 Cup final.
Dunfermline kick off against a Celtic team determined to avenge their 1961 defeat. Gallagher hits the crossbar with a long shot, but all's there, he heads it in. Celtic kick off for the second half, trailing 2-1. Now the pressure really piles up. A quick pass across the field, all's there again, he shoots, and it's a goal. Celtic are in there again, and Dunfermline are forced to concede a corner. Gallagher floats it over and it's in. It's in. Skipper McNeil has given victory to Celtic. And that's that. 18 times winners of the Cup since they entered the tournament. Celtic take the Cup home yet again.
The following campaign saw them win the first of 9 league titles in a row. And in 1967, they were to make history.
Celtic versus Inter Milan in the final of the European Cup. If any British team could win this coveted trophy, it had to be Celtic. Inter Milan kicked off, and in a continental near heatwave, maybe the odds were a shade against Celtic. And a fat lot the Scottish heroes and their 15,000 supporters cared about that. Attack is the policy that's won the Glasgow Idols everything this year, except the English Cup, for which they weren't qualified to compete. An early Inter Milan attack found Simpson on the alert. Celtic counter-attacked, coming within an ace of taking the lead. Inter Milan looked really dangerous here. Cappellini was brought down by Craig, a penalty. With the spot kick, Mazzola made no mistake. This was where Celtic showed the all-round attacking greatness that's made them invincible this season on every big occasion. Second half. Celtic still a goal down, in spite of having had 90% of the game so far. They continued piling on the pressure, believing the reward must come before long. The Italians had the luck of old Harry this time. Then fullback Tommy Gemmell shot from 25 yards out. Gemmell's brilliant goal didn't put new heart into Celtic. The old one was good enough to beat anybody. And how their supporters thanked their stars they'd come to Lisbon. But somehow, Inter's defence held firm. Barely 7 minutes from time came the winning goal. Chalmers deflected Murdoch's shot past Saki. That was how Celtic became the first ever British team to win the European Cup. Billy McNeill and his magnificent men earned the thanks and admiration of their native Glasgow, Scotland, and the whole United Kingdom. Glasgow. Back home it was cheers all the way along the 11-mile drive to Celtic Park. Celtic had come home. At their own stadium, more than 50,000 jubilant fans were in the stands and on the terraces, where they have so often seen their heroes triumph. The European Cup was here to take its place with all the other trophies Celtic have won.
It was obviously the best team he'd been involved with, because as many a team or many players in the subsequent years who ever thought they were above their station, he would always refer to the 11 guys for Glasgow who went to Lisbon and come back with the big cup. See that big cup, that one with the big ears? 11 boys for Glasgow won that, son. So that was always a good put down. He was very immensely proud of the Lions.
The Celtic team of the time became famed for the level of fitness. You only have to look at in the heat of Lisbon. Inter Milan were wilting in the sun, and Celtic could have went another half an hour in extra time, no bother, because the fitness level that no other team in Britain had, and probably no other team in Europe had. And part of that would have been down to Neilly's training, and Jock would have appreciated that.
High standards were set on the Barrowfield training pitches, and a new wave of talent threatened to be even more successful than their predecessors. This new crop were called the Quality Street Gang, and included tantalising prospects like Danny McGrain, Kenny Dalglish, Lou McCarry and Davy Hay.
And it was 9 years of championship wins then. And as they were doing that, through that success, they were still able to keep developing the young players. And of course along came people like David Catanack, David Hay, George Connolly, Danny McGrain, and John Gorman, Paul Wilson, Jimmy Quinn, Victor Davison. All these lads all came in, and I know I've missed one or two in there, but they all came in at that time, and they were known as a kind of quality gang, and they were able to come into Celtic's strong team, and were able to be nursed in and played a game, out a game, played 2 or 3 games, out a game, another game, and they were allowed to develop properly with good experience playing, and that gave Celtic the strength to carry on for the European success.
As Celtic moved into the 1970s, they looked certain to win further European titles and continued in their incredible run of 9 domestic league wins in a row. The new breed continued an almost annual foray into the latter stages of the European competitions, but failed to match the success of the Lisbon Lions.
Sean was the first to go. When he left, it was a difficult period. I think he felt it was tough to maintain the friendship, certainly with Jock Stein, because of the way the dynamic had changed. At first, they'd been so close, and then Sean had been replaced, and replaced his assistant with David McParland. And there was a feeling that maybe Jock Stein could have done a little bit more, and it was just a bit of an awkwardness. Sean never blamed Jock Stein, and there was a lot of politics going on in the boardroom around that time. And there was certainly a feeling later that they'd used Sean Fallon's departure to weaken Jock Stein's position, and really to with a view to what they did to Jock Stein a couple of years later. But they became close again later on, and I think Sean always was friendly with Neilly. I don't think the relationship ever changed with Neilly. I think they were always friendly. But the only problem was that I think Sean was never made to feel welcome at Celtic in the years that followed, for whatever reason that was. I don't think he got on particularly well with the board members, but he still contributed so much to the club. It was a very poor state of affairs. So he would wait until everyone had gone home and that Neilly was still around, clearing up, and he'd go in for his pots of tea with Neilly and sit around and chew the fat and look back in memories. And I think that was, for all the years that Neilly spent, the impression I got was very much that the years with Sean and Jock Stein, the great years, were his favourite years.
A lot of the atmosphere within the Celtic dressing room didn't just come from Jock Stein. The people always look back and say not only were we successful, but it was real good fun to be there, and it was good. It was a great place to be around, and they were lively people. There were guys who told jokes. There were guys who played wee tricks. There were guys who had a laugh and carried on with people.
Billy McNeill returned as manager for Celtic's centenary year, showing shrewdness in the transfer market, bringing in players Andy Walker, Chris Morris and Billy Stark. Frank McAvenny, a record buy from West Ham, was a final piece in McNeill's jigsaw as Paul McStay orchestrated a momentous League and Scottish Cup double.
What a job Billy McNeill had in front of him, where Graham Souness had come in and revolutionised Scottish football really in terms of the money that he was able to spend. And Celtic, of course, were expected to live with that and to at least match it, but we didn't have the funds that they had, and obviously that's all been part of recent history about Celtic, maybe the biscuit tin philosophy and all the rest of it, which became a standing joke. But I think Billy kept Tommy Craig, and obviously he had Neilly Mochan, and I'm sure Billy would tell you that was a huge, big bonus for him to have nearly that consistency that was always there, that they had been there and done it all. So as I say, he was a quiet, unassuming guy, but nobody stepped over the line with him, because he could cut you down with a one-liner.
He used to call them bits. I don't know if that's from where he's from, but the young boys used to go and say, Mr. Mochan, can I get a pair of boots? And he's going, boots? We didn't have boots when we won that big trophy with the big ears and all that. That's what he used to say to the young boys, and they were all totally annoy him. And he said, going out and running, he used to put tape on their boots. That lasted a couple of weeks and all that. So
I remember the dressing room at Celtic, which I hadn't been in before, of course, but there was this huge storage space at the back, and Neilly went up
and opened it, you could see all this stuff that was in there. I think he kept absolutely everything, strips, boots, gear. And this was July 87 I signed for Celtic, and he gave me a brand new pair of Adidas World Cup 82 boots that was in the stitching. They were brilliant boots, and I used them in pre-season. We went to Sweden, we played 3-4 games over there, and the boots were fabulous, but I always remember Neilly saying that, "Bits, a new pair, you're in the door 2 minutes, son, you want a new pair of bits? What have we got here?"
And I remember vividly my first experience in Neilly. He asked me in the first or second day, you know, what kind of boots I would like. And in the dress, in the dressing room with the likes of Danny McGrain and Tommy Burns and Peter Latsford and players, Davy Provan, players that had been there and been successful for a number of years. They have legends even at that particular time. And I asked him for Adidas World Cup. And he just looked at me and started laughing at me in a mocking way in front of everybody, and I was obviously a bit embarrassed, and he's pointing at me going, "Oh, what about this? Just in the World Cups, what about this? I was like totally mortified, absolutely mortified. But he just left it and he went out, and I just sat down and didn't say anything, just waited till he went out and trained. And but after training he came in and he gave me them, and it's only when you look back you realise, you know, that what he was doing. He was absolutely right. You know, I'd obviously come in as this smart ass in a bit of a way, you know, and he was putting me exactly where I should have been put.
I remember having a fallout with Billy where he'd taken me off. I think it was against Dundee United, and we lost the game 1-0, and I was getting the hump because I felt as though he'd been taking me off far too much in recent weeks. And I said to him, "Is that the only number you've got there? Number 10, is that the only number you hold up when you want to make a change?" And it wasn't Billy who turned round and gave me a blast. It was Neilly. "You shut up, son. Sit back there and just watch the rest of the game." So there was about half an hour to go, and whatever else happened. And Frank, I thought Frank was our top man at the time. Frank McAvenny, best striker I ever played with. And he missed a chance, and I'm looking at Neilly. Oh, Billy, get him off as well.
It was a team effort, you know. There was no way we were getting beat with Dundee United. It just was written. I mean, we scored so many goals in the last couple of minutes of that season. And not a lot of people know there was an awful lot of pressure on us to win it, because the supporters wanted it so much. And because it was a centenary year, you know, it was 100 years, and I'll never forget after the cup final when I scored the 2. Sitting with Tom Burns and Neilly came over, and we're sitting having a laugh, and Tommy was great. Tommy was crying. I'm saying, "What's the matter with you?" He's saying, "You've not got an idea, you've no idea," you know. He's saying, "We'll be remembered in 100 years for this." And Neilly went, "Oh, aye, right, okay, so give us the base of that cup," and took a cup. This is blind, just went right over his head. He went, "Oh, aye, son, all right, just give us the base of that cup." Tommy was sitting with the base. He never had the cup. He just sitting with the base, and it was so heavy. And Neilly just went, "Oh, okay, son, right, give me the base of that," and just walked away. It was just so Neilly.
I think the important thing to point out was, because he wasn't loud and all the rest of it, he had a terrific sense of humour and loved a laugh. And as you say, with the celebrations, he loved Celtic, and he loved Celtic being successful. But I never saw that shown in a way that was, over the top. And I think that's something that adds to that authority. When you see somebody like that, and you're maybe getting carried away a wee bit in the moment, and you think, well, he's been there and seen and done it all. It's not that big a deal to him. So, and I think he quite liked putting that across, because he never spoke about his career, but you knew that he had that up his sleeve if he needed it, but he was never forced to use it, I don't think.
I can remember feeling 10 feet tall under Billy McNeill, because my first Old Firm experience, when Billy Stark scored the winner 1-0 at Celtic Park, I can remember coming in at half time, been as high as a kite. We were 1-0 up, and Billy was just laughing. I'm looking over at Neilly was standing beside him, and he's looking at Neilly and he's saying, "They're playing some of the best football I've ever seen in an Old Firm game. I mean, better than anything we could come up with." I mean, when I think of it now, I mean, not a chance were we playing as well as any of the, Lisbon Lions or whatever. I mean, those guys stand alone. But Billy was saying this to us, a new team, new players, and he's bouncing it off Neilly, and it's coming back to us, and we are just feeling 10 feet tall. We're going out into the second half, we play even better. We get this 1-0 victory. Graham Souness gets sent off. There's a tremendous atmosphere. There's this big bust up in the tunnel after the game. When I come in the tunnel, I saw Billy and Neilly outside the dressing room, and Souness was having a go at them, and he's giving them a bit of stick about his Man City and Villa days, and Billy's giving it back. And I think Neilly wanted to get in front of him. Billy's holding Neilly back, and it was a fabulous experience for someone in their first Old Firm game.
Especially boys like myself, like Celtic supporters, That was my first game against Hibs, and the gaffer says, like, you hold back, and Neilly held me back, and all the boys went out, and I didn't want to get held back because I'm thinking the supporters wanted Charlie Nicholas. So I'm the one to run out more and get booed. So that's what I was thinking. And Neilly held me back, and as I was running out, wee Jimmy appeared. And he just gave us a cuddle, and he says, "Just go and enjoy yourself, wee man." And he was right. Just go and enjoy yourself. And I thought, that probably just summed up Celtic, and Neilly was part of that. He was just part of that whole. It was, the Lions are hanging over Celtic, every one of them, even the ones that, God rest them, have gone. They're all there in that era. We'll never be away. We'll always be in Celtic, and that's what makes it the club it is.
Sometimes he'd get a bit of humour, and of course he had a close relationship with Tommy Craig, but there were times when I'm sure Neilly would give him a wee nugget of information.
I think you tell him the Mock is the old school. You hear people talk about the old school, and Mock was the old school. First and foremost, the supporters were the main people of the club, and he done everything he could to help them in that way, and also being about the club, they had a great respect, and probably something like John Clark has got, at the present time, and the players can relate to him and speak to him and get advice off him. I'm sure Big Billy and other managers went to Neilly, for advice and that as well, because he was the old school and the Celtic traditions, the way the clubs, the people should behave themselves and go about their business as Celtic people. Neilly was definitely that way. He was big, and making sure if people had supporters dues, to try and get people to attend it, represent the supporters as well as a thank you to them. There's always somebody there for them,
Well, they all loved him because they had been very young players under Neilly's tutelage in the past, and they had been sometimes party and sometimes victim to many of his practical jokes, because he had a real sharp sense of humour. In the 4 years that I was there, I never saw Neilly without a smile on his face, or certainly not at any, always at least once or twice a day, having a cup of coffee and have a laugh, either with you or laughing at you, depending on the particular situations. He was a terrific person to have around, so positive, and as I say, they all loved the gang.
He probably had a couple of great lines in his time, Man, my green tooth should never throw tomatoes, you know what I mean? And that song, what was it? My Dolores, Neilly would sing Cedar Delilah. It was just a bundle of fun.
But Neilly, he just make a joke, kid you on, and he felt better with Neilly. He was a sort of comedian. And some of the things he said were unbelievable, You got everything upside down, back to front. Well, that's an obstacle illusion. It's not an optical. Then the famous story, he took us for a walk the night before the European Cup, over a mountain, over a cliff, and down a hill. We didn't know where we were going, no lights. How we all survived, we'll never know. And he laughed about it after that. He just laughed about it. He said, we got there, didn't we?
He was a wind-up merchant, but he enjoyed that because he got a lot of fun out of it. And he had a hilarious laugh, Neilly. He had a roar of a laugh. And
he's laughing at himself, actually, cracking his own jokes, which was, you get that with comedians, you know. But it was a great way to keep your dressing room alive, to keep your bus alive. Neilly would come up to the back of the bus in a serious mood, and you didn't know if Neilly was serious or no serious. But he never was, never was. At the end of the day, he was a funny, funny man. I think maybe the nickname Smiler says it all, you know, because he always had a smile on his face, always.
One of the famous ones as well with Danny Craney, he says to Danny he had a problem with the back door of his car, it wasn't shutting right. And he had an idea that if Danny went in the back, because Danny used to get dropped off at Croy on the way home, and if he got Joe Dot, the groundsman, he'd open the two back windows, got a bit of rope, tied it onto the handle, put it around the windows and get Danny to pull it tight as he could on the way back to Croy, keep pulling it tight till he got to Croy, and hopefully it'd be okay. So you can imagine Danny got in the back and put the rope around him. Danny had to pull it tight and driving away, and he always says, "You pulling that, son?" "I'm Danny, yeah, okay." Having it again, "You still pulling that, is that okay?" Pull it again, make sure it was okay. And Danny's sitting there all the way to Croy. They got to Croy, Neil got out, take the rope off, shut the door and went like, "You've done it, son. You've done it. You've managed to sort that. Thanks." And as he's driving away, Danny said, I could just see him going like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh," the famous smoke laugh, you know.
He always had this trick, I don't know if any of the other guys had told you, he used to carry a ping pong ball in his shirt here. And the guys used to say, "Go on, Neilly, do it, let him see it. Show him what you can do." And he used to get this ping pong ball and throw it up and catch it on his forehead. And he'd go like that, and you would think, that's brilliant. So you would have a shot and it would bounce off and bounce off and bounce off. But what he used to do was he used to get Vaseline and put it over his face. So when the ball went up, it used to stick in the Vaseline. And he used to go like that, kid on like he was keeping the balance. And then he used to go like that, and the ball would be stuck on his forehead like this. And that's the kind of character Neilly was.
And in a pre-season trip, I think it was Germany or something like that, and we came in for something to eat for dinner, and it's sort of different ways, of course, different cultures and ways of eating, and they brought in a couple of bowls of pepper sauce because we were obviously getting steaks, and of course Neilly and Steely thought it was soup. So the two of them started, and you could see it was almost like a cartoon. They were just going red all the way up. So that was one of the few, maybe the only occasion I remember Neilly being wrong-footed a wee bit. So he took a bit of stick for that. But of course, he would always come back and have the last word.
The argument happened. It'd been a build-up about Andy Payton saying he could outrun anybody, and then Neilly was obviously winding him up, saying, "Look, son." That was his favourite, "Look, son." You know, and Andy Payton took the bait, and Neilly says, "I could outrun you." Right, and then it's just built up and built up. And then it just got to a heat in the boot room. I remember in the boot room, Andy Payton saying, "I'll race you for any money you want." And Neilly says, "I tell you what," and I think it was 100 quid, I can't remember exactly. Neilly says, "You go that way round the pitch, and I'll go round that way round the pitch. And the first back to the line lifts the money." Andy Payton, no problem, Neilly. So I remember Andy Payton away to get his money, and I said to Neilly, I says, "You can't win." And he's like, he just gives me his look. And then that's it, he's got the sandball and he's straight out, all dash pitch, round the Parkhead, Celtic Park. And then it was a really sunny day, and Andy Payton was going that way, and Neilly was going that way. And the two of them lined up, and Andy Payton was standing like that to go, and Neilly had his two fingers on the track, like he was going to do a sprint. Right, and all the players were there and going, Neilly. And Andy Payton, "On your marks, get set, go." And the two of them, so everybody was shouting, Andy. So Andy got right round the corner. He was going right round. He was still bombing it round, the big arms jumping round, because he could run. He was right round. Neilly had got 40 yards, stopped, turned back, came back to the line and left the money. And says, first back to the line, gets the money. He left the money straight up the tunnel. So everybody's rolling about laughing. But Andy Payton's still coming down. He got to the halfway line, he still hadn't noticed. He got to the corner flag. And by that stage, everybody was like waving to him back up the tunnel where he came in raging. But it was gone, his money had gone.
Like I say, through the park, he's a different person altogether from the house. It wasn't until I was much older that I realised what he was like through there. I found it quite surprising actually. I was probably in my 30s before I actually speak to people. He told me what it was like away from the house, and it was like a different person, eh?
But like I say, he was always joking. He liked Doyle. He loved Johnny Doyle. Because Johnny was a wee bit like him. They liked to laugh and they liked to kid people on. But they knew where to draw the line. You know, you get all that during the week, but come a Saturday in the dressing room, these guys were switched on to something else, you know, great determination. But you need these people as well. You need them in the dressing room.
Celtic had a procession of unsuccessful managers, unfortunately. And this happened that Tommy Burns was given the job, and it was a very popular decision. Celtic fans were obviously massively enthused by Tommy Burns, who was a young manager coming in with Billy Stark.
You're always looking for wee things to reassure you, and Neilly Mochan was very much one of them that you know, you came back in. There was a lot of changes, obviously, that take place over, I think it was 4 years. And as I say, you know, you find your feet, you've got a new squad of players. There was some players that were still there that we had played with. But Neilly was his usual, you know, confident, unassuming, and you just looked at him for some reassurance. And you know, if we came back to a club that was maybe changed a wee bit and in turmoil, then you know there was that aura that Neilly had that just sort of settled you down a wee bit.
Neilly Mochan had seen Tommy develop from wee Tam for the Carlton as a ground staff, 15-year-old boy with bright ginger hair, and now he was the manager of the club, and it had come full circle. So Neilly Mochan and Tommy Burns had a great respect for each other, and Tommy would have been looking at that and quite comfortable that he had somebody there that he could lend an ear to whenever was necessary. Unfortunately, Neilly was struck down by leukemia.
Well, we're all sorry to hear. I mean, he was, as public knowledge, he was diagnosed with leukemia, and with such a diagnosis, and he wasn't a particularly old man, but we all realised, you know, that he was never going to recover from this. It was a question of time. But having mentioned, you know, that he was a man of faith and had great family support, when I met with Neilly, and certainly in our church we have the tradition of the sacrament of the sick, which I did administer to Neilly, that there was that calm acceptance. You know, he kind of knew what was happening, and he wasn't afraid of what was happening. I suppose, being human as we all are, your thoughts go to, what about my family? And you know, when you are the father, the grandfather, when you're the breadwinner and in that supporting role, it's not so much of what you're going to, it's often what you're leaving behind. But Neilly knew he had a good, strong family that would look after and care for each other, so that was less of a worry in one sense. But there was just that benign, calm acceptance of, well, this is the next stage of my journey, and he faced it well.
We all knew that Neilly was struggling. We all knew that he didn't have the same energy levels. He was sleeping a lot, which wasn't like him. You know, you'd catch him, you know, just falling asleep in a chair, or maybe going through to the, you know, where we used to have our plate of soup, and he might be, you know, just having a wee nap in there. And it was horrible to see him not have that spark, that level.
I'd got asked, I think it was for Frank Connor, look, Neilly's no well, could you give us a hand and do the kit at Brockville for Neilly? And I said, yeah, no problem. And what I'd done was I went in with Frank and we put the strips up in that, and then we went and played Falkirk. I stayed in Falkirk, so that was fine. And then once the game was over, I had to get in the bus and I'd take all the players to like the Falkirk Royal. Like I was kind of sitting outside the hospital because I'd been in it seeing Neilly, it was fine. And the players all went in. I was really close to Neilly, so it was grand, and he was shouting me back in, and like he was always winding me up, right? But he was shouting us back in, but I wouldn't go back in. I said, oh no, I'll see you tomorrow, whatever. And he kept saying, come back in. And I never went back in. And it was that night, like he had passed away. But I always thought, well, you know, even though I knew he was ill, I always thought, oh, it's Neilly, and he'll be all right. But he wasn't all right,
When I got the news that Neilly had in fact passed away, I get in the car, drove down to the house, and as you open the door of the living room into their house, Mary's chair was in the corner there, and Mary was sitting in her chair, and I just went forward to her, and I got down on my knees, you know, took her hand and offered her some sympathy, and we were chatting away for a wee while. And I suppose I was quite fixed on Mary when I went into the house. So I wasn't aware when I first walked through the door that the room was actually chock-a-block with people. I only saw Mary. And it took a couple of minutes of talking to Mary before I realised, wait a minute, there's other people here. And I just looked round, and there they all were. The first one I saw was Billy McNeil, and then there was Jimmy Johnson. All the Lisbon Lions were there. And I don't know if my jaw dropped, but it probably did, because I suddenly went from seeing Mary to seeing all my boyhood heroes, all in the one room, all chatting away. And of course we were, as in a situation like that, we were all talking about Neilly and sharing stories of his life. Celtic have that family feel. If you're a Celtic fan, you belong to a family. And that's what it was like. But here were the heads of the family, if you like.
When you're involved with a club like Celtic and become part of it, then you know, they talk about being a family, and there's been many people have passed on that you know, bring a lot of grief and heartbreak for people, and they're always difficult. And you know, in terms of Neilly, you know, I could see that. Everybody could see it with the likes of Tommy and Peter and Paul that had came through as young lads with him and had known him all those years. It's always harder. But as I say, it was really sad.
I changed the homily slightly when I saw that Walter Smith and Archie Knox were there, because I could not miss the occasion to mention the Hampden in the Sun occasion, when Neilly in fact scored the 2 goals in that great 7-1 victory. And I also mentioned the Coronation Cup, which is sometimes known as the Mochan Cup, because he was largely obviously the winner of that for them. So there's key moments in his football career that were certainly mentioned in here. One thing I did say, because in going to the games when Neilly was there, I used to look down on him in the dugout, because I could see him quite clearly every time I went to the game. And I mentioned the fact that when I went to Paradise, I would look down on Neilly sitting in his seat. And now that Neilly's in Paradise, he's in his seat looking down on the rest of us.
It was his life, really. You know, he would go away in the morning, and that would be him till late afternoon, night, you know. And he was a great employee, I suppose, for Celtic, you know. Everything was for the club and that.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. I think you can see that happen not just at Celtic, but at a club at Liverpool, as you know, the boot room. These that kind of experience, you can't beat it. You really can't. And Neilly is 35, 40 years. I mean, that's an incredibly long time, you know. And of course, it's a great thing as players get, you know, players can gather knowledge from, you know. And of course, Neilly, I think, passed on advice when it was sought from Celtic managers who succeeded Jock Stein, the likes of Billy McNeil and David Hay, Tommy Burns. It's invaluable, you know. You respect him when you get a man who earns such respect. It's invaluable to get to picking his brains, you know.
Well, he's associated with great success, and he was right in the thick of it. He was in the trenches. He was over the trenches attacking. He was there with the manager. So, you know, you can't separate him from the triumphs. So he's part of the triumphs, because he did all the important, basic, fundamental things to get people fit. And also pleasant about it. As I said, the interpreter of Stein's mood and so on. So absolutely vital. People have to home in on that as perhaps not initially recognisable, but extremely important.
Oh, Neilly be up there. Neilly be up high there, I'll tell you that. I think it's hard to say who's this and who's that, but Neilly was well up there. Neilly was great for our team. Neilly was great for our club.
He had a great saying. We used to get people that turn around and say, oh, that one was the best player, and that one was the best player, and he'd say, put your medals on the table. And that was it, you know, and that proved it. The medals it has is a brilliant collection, you know. People give the right hand to have them and that, you know.
He's got to be up there for just this, not just the stuff he's done, but longevity too, you know. Like you said, I served under, was it 5 managers or whatever? Neilly's probably served under like the most of any guy at Celtic. So it probably speaks itself, you know.
When you look at the history of the Celtic Football Club, all the great events, the Moat was involved in it. You know, the Coronation Cup final, he scored. Hampden the Sun 7-1, he scored 2. 67, he was as a coach. 9 in a row, he was a coach. Centenary year, double, he was in the background staff. So, you know, the history of the club, Neilly was a big part of the history of the club, you know, and that's much respect to go for the players.
To have somebody that's there, that and everybody had great respect for him, as they did with Sean. But I think it's vital. People might, you know, to bring in maybe foreign managers or foreign players, but there's a lot to be said for the local playing, you know. If you look at Baresi with AC Milan, Puyol with Barcelona, these were locals, these guys. Even Man United, Paul Scholes, people like that. Yeah, people might think the game's changed a lot, so it has, but I think that part of the bit when things are going against you, and in the dressing room, these people are vital.
He must be up there along with lots of people who were great Celtic players. Without a doubt, if you look at, I think he scored about 116 goals or something. You know, he's definitely a legend, Neilly Mochan.